All right, well, we are here with the man, the myth, the legend, and I don't know, maybe tell us if Lundy sent you or not, but Andrew Russell of Andrew Russell and Associates. You know what, you've been asking about coming in the studio, and you're here, so welcome.
Thanks. It was nice of you to invite me after 9.5 months.
Hey, we had you at 10, so you're early. But yeah, thanks for being here. Now, we've done a troubled tea time with you before, and we thought that was pretty fun. We learned some stuff. So we're going to do a little bit of an expansion on that as well. So first off, just tell everyone a little bit about your background in real estate and, you know, how long you've been in the community here now.
I have lived in Red Deer my whole life. I've been selling real estate for just over 15 years. I'm a second-gen realtor, meaning my dad started in the business back in 79.
Dale, what a legend.
Reasonably well-known guy. That's it. There's nothing else.
So I'm going to start off right away with a story, because now you've been probably 14, 15 episodes. You've been a partner of the podcast, and you finally got recognized this past weekend. Or not recognized for the podcast, not for your handsome face on the bus benches.
Yeah, so we were doing a private client event out at the Cray family farm, and a guy walks up to me that I didn't recognize, and he goes, "Are you Andrew?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm not a client, but he goes, I listen to the Oh Dear podcast." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. Like, it's it's good to meet. Always good to meet a listener and a fan." And anyway, so he was chatting away about the podcast, and then he's like, "Well," he goes, "I'll let you get back to your event here and tell him Lundy sent ya."
All right, it's working. All right.
So I'm sure he'll be listening to this. So shout out to you, guy at the corn maze.
That's your closest to your first time being recognized too, Lundy.
Wow, I've been recognized like 2 or 3 times now. It's usually at the grocery store, and it's usually like, "Hey, did you almost hit me with your car?" But
that was a bad joke.
No, that was a bad joke, and it's staying in. Yeah. Everyone, Ryan Lund is human. Sometimes he's not funny.
Well, okay. Thanks a lot, Ted. I thought we were being nice today.
Yeah, I called you a human. Anyways, back to Andrew. This isn't the Ryan Lund interview yet.
I'd like to go back to me and Andrew's first time meeting, actually, if we could.
I'd like to hear the story, Ted. I don't know what he's talking about. So
the first time I met Andrew is in Novice B Jaguar jackets. That's the end of my story.
You're wrong. That was actually Adam.
Oh, Adam.
Oh, we're 0 for 2 on stories right off the hop.
It was first year Adam. Now that you mention it, because at the start of COVID, before the lockdowns, I was at my parents' place, and Mom pulls out this box of my childhood photos, and sure enough, all my old hockey pictures are in there. And I posted a bunch of them on Facebook and tagged a bunch of guys, just guys you hadn't seen or guys you'd totally forgotten about. And I actually forgot that Moore was on my team that year because he was awful.
Hey, but it sounds like you got better.
I got a little bit better. And look at us now. We're playing beer leagues together. We both ended up in the exact same position.
You went a little bit further than me. But
when you were on the ice, I saw a picture. You were on the ice this weekend too. I think you were maybe a half-assed referee or something like that, or a half-assed coach.
No, I was running pre-tryout skates for Red Deer minor hockey. I do quite a bit of coaching and stuff with minor hockey.
So a man of the community as well. So let's go into talking about real estate. It's been a weird year and a half or so. What have you seen, Andrew? Like, has the market been the same, worse, better through, I guess we're a year and a half into COVID now?
So COVID has actually been really good for the real estate market.
So you're the guy. Was this like all a real estate scam?
Yes.
That originated in China?
I created COVID.
It's working.
All right. Yeah, we got it on tape.
Alberta's market needed a boost. So
man, Fauci's looking for you. They've been trying to find that leak.
Fauci.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't the lab leak in China after all. All right, you heard it here first, folks.
So yeah, when schools got shut down, when this all initially started happening, I really didn't pay too much attention to it because we've had outbreaks, not to this level obviously, but we had heard rumblings of H1N1 and stuff like that, and I wasn't paying too much attention to it, thinking, this isn't going to go anywhere. And then I think it was March 15th, they shut schools down, and I was like, oh, okay, this is about to get serious. And It was a little bit panicky for us, just because we had no idea what was coming business-wise. I think it's probably the same for a lot of business owners. And suddenly you're sitting there going, "Oh man, this could be a really lean, 6 months or a year, or we don't know." And I was thinking like, people are going to get laid off from work, and people aren't going to be working. They're going to be hoarding their money. And sure enough, it ended up being the complete and total opposite. A lot of people stayed employed. Suddenly they had nowhere to spend their money. They had nothing to do. They were stuck in their houses, which they started realizing they didn't like. So in April of 2020, the sales in Red Deer were down just over 50%. So it was a slower month. We were still selling property. We had people that still needed to move. So stuff was still happening. There was obviously COVID protocols in place with showings and all that kind of thing. May improved a little bit. Sales were still down 42% from the year before. And so just for the record, like 2019 was not a year to write home about for real estate in Red Deer. So then suddenly like June 1st, it was like somebody flicked the light switch and the market took off. And I actually ended up having like one of the busiest months that I've ever had in 15 years. We were sitting on all this inventory, all these listings that we had that weren't really moving. And then suddenly like everybody came out of the woodworks and everybody was buying it up. And so part of that was that the interest rates had gotten really good, but a lot of it honestly was COVID boredom. And this year, the same thing happened again, early spring. We were kind of expecting it to be a reasonably stable year, similar to kind of what we had seen in the summer of last year, which the market actually started improving. February of this year, same thing. Somebody flicked the light switch and the market took off. And we've had it's just been an absolutely crazy kind of 8-9 months now. Things are calming down now. But yeah, COVID ended up being really good for the real estate market. And it was actually, a nice change of pace for Red Deer because we've had a down market for the last 6 years.
I know you're talking Red Deer, but do you know, I guess you may not know because you're a Red Deer realtor, but how are we in comparison to like other big cities in Alberta or even Western Canada? Are we fairly consistent with those other big cities in regards to moving houses?
No, BC has seen drastically more increase than we have. Ontario, same thing. And basically, it seems like those are kind of the two hottest markets. Calgary saw more increase than Red Deer did, largely because we're losing population to Calgary. There's a lot of businesses that were consolidating smaller locations. We're centralizing all their employees in one spot. And so probably, I'd say the last year and a half, I've lost more clients to moving out of town, primarily to Calgary, some to Edmonton, but mostly it's been to Calgary or BC. I've had a ton of clients that are retiring and they're moving out to the island. And a lot of people now can work remotely. So we're seeing it shift where people are going, well, if I can work remotely, I can hold my job. I'm going to move to somewhere with, a nicer climate or a nicer city or whatever. And of course, when that happens, it starts driving the prices up, right? In Vancouver, in Victoria, anywhere on the island, like they were getting, and I think in Toronto as well, like they're getting 30, 40 offers on properties. Stuff is selling like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 over ask. We haven't seen any of that. Like in the prime of our spring market, we were getting to, we'd get 2-3 offers on a property and it might sell at list or, a little bit over list for the most part. And we're still seeing a little bit of that. It's calmed down now just because I think people kind of started to see an end in sight. Like on July 1st, when all the restrictions came out, everything slowed down a little bit for us. And obviously it was because things opened back up. People could go out, they could do stuff, they could travel again. So people were taking their summer holidays. And we totally expected that. Like we saw that coming. And it's starting to pick up again now. So I think long term, the real estate market is probably in good shape because people see a turn in the economy. And COVID will change the layout of the workplace a little bit too, because now we're back into work at home orders. Right. So people are spending a lot more time in their homes now and they're realizing, oh, hey, maybe we should live somewhere that we want to live. So we haven't seen that same draw just because we don't have the population increase happening. Right. A lot of Albertans are moving to BC or they're moving other places for work or whatever. And we're not seeing that same level of increase.
Hey, just speaking about prices, do you have any 1-bedroom units that Ted could move into?
So your question actually reminds me of one of my favorite stories in the 15 years I've been in the industry. So there is an agent in town who listed a property for $7,800. This was, it was in a mobile home park, but $7,800. And the opening title on the listing description was, "The poor house is better than no house."
I don't even think I could afford that place.
Like that was on the listing?
That was on the listing.
Was there a
And
description on the listing, or was that
no,
it?
that was the description on the listing, was the poor house is better than no house.
Honesty's the best policy, I guess, right?
And hey, it's sold.
Yeah.
It's sold. Somebody went and fixed it up. It's a good fixer-upper opportunity for a flipper.
So you've talked about how the real estate market's been really hot in the last, year or pockets of it. Is that just due to the volume of houses that are selling, or like, is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Is it pretty even? What's that kind of been looking like lately?
Red Deer primarily has been mostly balanced at kind of the higher end of a balanced market. Balanced is basically, it's kind of in the middle, doesn't necessarily favor buyers or sellers. It's just kind of a nice even keel market. And so we've had pockets of the market where it's been pushing seller's market territory, or it's been into seller's market territory. And so there's been an interesting split. And again, it's COVID related, but single family properties are at a premium right now. So single family detached houses, it's the hottest category by a mile. Duplexes, townhouses, haven't seen the same level of interest or increase. Acreages have suddenly taken off. The acreage market prior to basically this year and last year was really slow. And, you go back to the oil boom days of 2014, even 2015, and acreages were hot commodity. People had the money to spend. They needed room for their toys and their trailers and all that kind of stuff. When the oil market crashed, a lot of that went away. People weren't spending the money on acreages. And then suddenly COVID hits. Everybody wanted more space. They wanted to be further away from people. And so it had a mass adverse effect on apartment condos. Suddenly people don't want to share space. They don't want to share hallways. They don't want to share mail areas and
Ventilation
common areas.
systems.
All of that stuff. So yeah, COVID has actually shifted the market where single family properties are now at a premium, as well as acreages being at a premium. The demand for acreages is still really high. And there is a shortage of good inventory there. So if you have an acreage that you've been trying to sell or wanting to sell, now is probably a really good time to do it.
Does Teasdale Drive qualify as an acreage?
1 acre minus 0.8 acres.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
I'm going to steal a question, actually. I don't know if Dustin or Lund asked it in our tea time, but it was a good one. If you're selling your house or looking to sell your house, what are some things you can do, I guess almost like hacks, to help it sell quicker and maybe increase the value? I know there's a couple even small things you can do.
That's a very good question. It's amazing how many people just want to throw their houses up without prepping them for sale at all, which has a massive effect on saleability, because you don't live in your house the same way you're going to show your house, right? When you are prepping a property for sale, you want to make it as appealing to a buyer as absolutely possible. And so ultimately, if there's a problem in your house that you don't want to deal with, chances are the buyers don't want to deal with it either. So sometimes spending money will actually net you money back. And I do get that question frequently where people are afraid to, go in and replace flooring or anything like that. The way the banks are now, you go back to, 14 or 07 when the market was really good, the economy was really good, banks would throw money at you. If you wanted a line of credit, if you could fog a mirror, they'd give you a line of credit. They didn't care. Banks don't do that anymore. Now they want a blood sample and a retina scan and your financial history for the last 25 years before they'll give you anything.
Oh, Lundy, I got bad news. I'm not going to pass any of those things.
Yeah. Your blood sample's not going to be too nice.
So it's so much harder for buyers to come across that money now that for them, most of the time, they're just scraping together their 5% down payment. So they don't want to come in and spend $20,000, $30,000 renovating. So they will pay more of a premium for a good property that they can move into without having to do any renovations because they can just mortgage everything, and then there's no additional payment. There's no additional headache. They don't have to go through the work. And for a lot of people, they don't even know who to call or where to start when it comes to renovating properties. So doing things like touching up your paint, right? Fixing the little nicks and dings in your walls, cleaning your carpets, clean the furnace, give the house a good thorough cleaning, decluttering, depersonalizing, home staging. All these things are, really simple things. And that's something that we go through with our clients. And I mean, if you look at, a good chunk of my listings and how they show and present online, that's huge. Because if you're looking online at a property and you go and so let's just say you've got bad photos, or you didn't stage or clean up at all. The realtor just came in, snapped some photos with their iPhone and then threw it up on the market. Well, a buyer's going to look at that and go, there's all this stuff. The counters look cluttered. The house looks messy, right? That's not appealing. People make their decisions on what they're going to go look at based on what they see online, right? So if you've got bad photos, if your house is not prepped and staged and ready to go, you are turning buyers away from your home, because if there's 15 other properties for them to go look at, they'll go look at those first.
What happens if you're Kevin Walsh and you got 3 kids and a ton of toys? You get professional. So we signed up with Andrew Russell. We get professional photos. Now he's going to be showing his house at whatever hour when other people are coming in. Is there any last minute stuff that comes up kind of as you go, where it's like a mad dash to get every toy away in the house, or how does that work?
We have a bit of a process where our stager will go through the property with you, and basically she'll help you create a plan for when there's showings. Here's how the house needs to look. And basically we minimize. And a lot of our clients are families with young kids. So we've got processes in place that make it as easy as we can. And I won't lie to you, like the showing process is a pain in the butt. And I tell people it's kind of a necessary evil. There's not really any great way around it. And we do the best we can. And for the most part, people are really good. They understand, hey, these people have kids. A lot of the time, the buyers themselves will have kids. And so there's some level of understanding, but they still expect the property to look good, the walls to be in good shape. People don't want to spend premium money if your house needs a bunch of work. They will spend premium money if they go, this is perfect, I can move right in, I don't have to touch anything. So we do have processes in place to make it as easy and painless as we can for our clients. Obviously, there's still a little bit of work involved. And with the staging, like I always tell people, if I said to you, hey, you give me $1,000, I'm going to give you $5,000 back. Would you do it? Well, of course you would. Right? Well, that's effectively what staging is going to do.
What's the catch? What's the catch, Mr. Russell?
You actually have to do some work, Lund.
Nah, I don't like it.
That's a big that's a big catch.
That's a hard no for me.
So I have a quick story on the pictures. When we bought our most recent house with Andrew, we were looking through, of course, me and my wife at home, and the house we now lived in, the owners clearly took the pictures themselves. Like there was their dog in the picture, and then they took a picture like their bonus room with their TV, and there was a movie on the TV. And I remember Andrew we met him there to see it the first time, and he's just shaking his head. He was so mad that these guys had taken their own pictures, and they weren't very good. But you know what? We bought the house anyways.
Yeah,
Is that how you got your dog and your TV too? Like you say, hey, that's in there. It comes with it.
We tried to write the dog in the contract, but
chances are
there's ethics there, I think.
Chances are the realtor probably took those photos. It's unbelievable to me how many realtors are still taking their own photos with their iPhones. Bad lighting, bad exposures, bad everything. And you see it. I mean, you don't have to go far on MLS anywhere in any city to find bad realtor photos. I think there's actually a website somewhere that's like bad MLS photos or something along those lines.
Well, I know a couple of people who make a living just taking real estate photos. Like, do you use a photographer, or do you take all your own photos?
I actually am, I'm a published real estate photographer, believe it or not, but no, I don't take my own photos. I still have a photographer that comes in. And there's lots of other cool things that we do now too that I don't have access to, but my photographer does, like 3D click-through tours. With COVID, when COVID hit, we had to figure out how do we get people to still see a property without them physically walking through the property. And those 3D tours became huge. And they're actually really cool. Like they're really detailed. You can look up at the ceiling. You can look down at the floor. And you can spend a lot of time just going through a property online without ever actually disturbing the seller. The other thing that they do too is they draw up floor plans. And so we're doing those on just about all of our listings now. And buyers really like them. And I find they're really helpful through the process. And a big part of that, again, is getting your property staged so that it presents well before you actually get those done, so that a buyer's not clicking through your house and seeing all your personal junk all over your counters and everywhere else.
I want to swing back to when we were talking about Kev wanting to get the dog drawn up in the contract. Has there been any other weird requests when you sold a house that somebody wants to keep from the house that's existing from somebody's personal property?
I always tell everyone that everything is for sale, or generally everything is for sale. There is a real estate trainer in the industry that tells a story about a guy. He was trying to sell a house. This is in California. He's trying to sell a house to a surfer guy. Didn't really know what he wanted. Like he didn't know what he wanted. And, he looked at a ton of houses and just everything was okay, but nothing was perfect. And he actually ended up writing an offer on a property because he wanted the family's dog. And the story finalizes that the family gave him the dog because they were moving somewhere and weren't able to take him anyway. So this surfer guy bought a house so that he could get a dog. And I don't know if this story is true. I'm assuming it is. He's a pretty reputable guy. And I personally have never had that happen.
That's because Kev didn't try hard enough for that dog or even the TV.
Well, good. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Making them throw in the dog, close the deal.
Hey,
He was in
every
the
chance-
picture, man.
Every chance, yes. It's a life lesson. Don't advertise it if you're not willing to sell it.
So no weird things?
No, I can't think of anything other than, people have asked for furniture and artwork. I can't think of anything else other than maybe artwork that
What about like a golf simulator, or I'm sure obviously hot tubs, but what about like a backyard sauna or something really, really pricey like that?
That kind of stuff gets thrown in all the time. Hot tubs are an interesting one because if you go to the store to buy a hot tub, like you can spend 15, 20, 30,000 bucks on a hot tub pretty easily. And to the right buyer, they're worth something. And to the wrong buyer, they're worth nothing. And you get some buyers that are like, no, get that thing the hell out of the yard. I don't want it. And you get other buyers that are like, yeah, I want a hot tub. That's awesome. So that stuff generally tends to get included. It does mess with the pricing of the house because I can't increase the value of your property by 15 grand because you're throwing in a hot tub. So it does make things interesting. I have seen some like outdoor barrel saunas and a few things like that. And now the newest one is these swim spas, these massive, like $30,000, $40,000 swim spas. And that stuff creates a headache when we're trying to sell property, because how do you explain to a bank that, $30,000 of the value of a property is inside the swim spa?
You don't.
I was hoping when I asked that question that you had some like strange people come across your desk with some fetishes for like toothbrushes or like locks of hair or something.
Why were you hoping that?
I don't know. I just wanted
That
a cool,
is
I just
really
wanted a cool
weird.
story.
I just don't want to be the only one, so I had to ask.
I was
Someone
hoping
else
you could
was
have
like,
that
toothbrush?
Yeah, I'm not buying your house unless you give me your toothbrush.
I think I'm going to be deleting Dustin from my phone. Dustin, I'm going to need you to find another realtor. I have seen houses where there's hooks in the ceiling for things like sex swings. And actually, that's way more common than you think. Mirrors on the ceilings in the master bedroom. That's
Smart.
That stuff it's more frequent than you might anticipate.
Sounds
And
like a lot of healthy relationships to me.
stripper poles in the master bedroom. That's the other one. Seen a few of those.
Now, would you encourage putting a picture of your sex swing on the listing? Would that drum up more business?
It might if Dustin's your buyer.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
toothbrushes, though.
Hey, well, I was just hoping for a cool story.
Okay.
The next listing I need Dustin to buy, I'm gonna advertise a sex swing and a toothbrush. A used toothbrush.
What is the highest number of times that you've shown a house to the same person? The same house to the same person?
Ooh, probably 5 or 6.
Oh, that's not that bad.
How many times did you look at your house, Kev?
2?
5.
5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's a lot of time. Like I think the one time we were in there 5 or 6 times, that they were also selling a property and they both took a long time to sell. And so it's one of those where a lot of people will go look at a property for a second time before they make an offer, like unless the market's really hot and sometimes you don't have time. But for the most part, people will go look at a property at least twice, sometimes 3 times. Some people want to get their parents' opinion on a property, so that's kind of another time you end up back there. But no, most people are pretty reasonable. We don't end up with 10, 12 showings. At some point, the seller is going to be like, okay, you're not allowed in here anymore.
So, Andrew, we obviously just had an election. It's another liberal minority government. Do you see any changes that the liberal government's going to introduce that's going to affect the housing market?
I don't think there's anything in Alberta. I didn't pay too much attention to it because I hate politics. Thanks for bringing it up, Lund.
We were all hoping.
I
thought it was a good question, and it's very topical, very on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. Current event.
Yeah.
Well done, Lundy.
Thanks, man.
I didn't pay too much attention to the platforms. I know the one big thing. So the Liberal government was talking about taxing or putting capital gains on your primary residence, which, I mean, honestly, not very many people in Alberta have that much for capital gains on their residence unless they bought it 20 years ago or more than 20 years ago. So that's not going to be a huge thing for us, although I do think it's got big potential to hurt people because it's going to impact their ability to move up into larger homes. I'm surprised that they still got the support they did in Toronto, because a lot of people there are going to be getting taxed massively on the gains in their houses, because a lot of those people are up, $400,000-$500,000 in the values of their properties. Other than that, the other one I paid attention to was the restriction of foreign buyers, which is definitely not a problem in Red Deer. And I don't think it's much of a problem in Calgary. I think that's mostly going to impact the Vancouver, Toronto markets. And I don't think it's a bad thing, because, locals there have been priced out of the market. And I don't know that it's solely based or because of foreign buyers. But based on what the media preaches, it sounds like that is a problem for them. But Alberta obviously is not really a hotspot for people coming over from China and all that kind of thing.
Andrew, you've probably sold some pretty cool properties and even some historical properties. Is there one or two in your time as a realtor that's really stood out to you that you've got to be a part of selling?
I actually just sold the Wilson House, which is a historic property in Red Deer. We sold that one last year. It was built in 1911. I actually had Michael Daw come in and do a little narrative video explaining the history of the property for us. That was actually a really cool house. They had all the documentation of all the owners, all the people who had lived there. At one point, it was actually a nursing home in the 1950s, and they had named it Grandview Villa. The history on that house was super extensive, and it had been really beautifully remodeled. And it still had all of the old doors, the original door handles. It had the old coal furnace still in the basement, the coal chute, totally different era of a house, and a huge house for the time. In 1911, that house was 2,400 square feet, I believe, on 2 floors, which is a big house for today's standards. So you can only imagine what that was in 1911 when people were living in 500 square foot houses with 4 kids. So that was really cool. And the owners just did such a nice job of maintaining that place. So that was a fun sale. Probably the coolest house I've ever sold was one out in Sylvan. Massive property, every amenity you can imagine, indoor pool, golf simulator, huge bar. It had a dumbwaiter actually from the kitchen down to the bar downstairs. So you could put a plate of food on this thing and raise it and lower it. It actually had a little tiny boat, because the water close to the house is a little bit shallow. So they had a little 2-person boat that would shuttle you out to the main dock where the primary boat sits. Super cool property.
Does Michael Daw do narrations for anybody's property? I'm just thinking there's some pretty cool stuff in my house that he could probably come give a little narration for. Got a pretty cool bar in my basement, and
here's the plate that's been on the floor for 3 days, and here's a cup that's been on this beside the sink for 6 days.
Here's the pair of shoes that Ted tripped over.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I came home one day and someone just laid 6 shoes across the top of the stairs going to the basement. I don't know who did it, but it was funny. So if you're listening and you did it, good job. I laughed.
I also came over and took some of your beer out of the fridge one day, Ted, just because I know you like that so much. So
yeah, we're also hosing you for what you're paying for this podcast, so I'm not too worried.
Hey, it's all even, guys. It all balances out.
Okay, let's talk about the podcast, because maybe you don't want to share your secrets, but people around town see you on the bus benches. You have a lot of bus benches. The Russell Realty Group, that's what it is. That's what it's called.
It was Andrew Russell and Associates.
Yeah, see, I knew I had it wrong.
Man, they're working. The bus benches are working so
working,
well.
apparently. Yeah.
I see Andrew.
I guess it only works if you can read.
So, and you have the pod. Damn it!
Man, but the pictures on the bus bench are so good.
and you have the pod. Yeah, the pictures get me every time.
Yeah, you guys go up in hot air balloon and everything, hey?
Oh my god!
We actually, so Remax was giving away a hot air balloon, and one of the people we went to high school with actually won it after I'd shared it on my Facebook page. So she got a free trip in a Remax hot air balloon.
That's pretty cool. But let's go back to my previous question, which was, advertising with the bus benches. You advertise with the podcast a little bit, which is pretty new for you. Maybe if you don't want to share your secrets, you don't have to, but is there anything that's been really successful for you guys and your group in advertising, or is it mostly word of mouth and
Probably 80% of our business is repeat clients, past clients giving us referrals. Like Kevin obviously has referred me quite a few clients. So that's kind of primary of what we're built on. We don't do a ton of advertising. Actually, prior to the bus benches, we were doing almost no advertising other than to our existing clients. And you don't do the bus benches to bring in deals directly. It's more just an awareness thing, right? As much as having a for sale sign somewhere is an awareness thing. People know your name, they know your brand, and so the hope is obviously that when they think real estate, they go, "Who's that guy we see on the bus bench all the time?" Right. And most of our stuff is backed by things like our Google reviews and our Facebook reviews. And most people now are doing their research before I ever get a phone call or an email. So our online presence and our social media and that kind of thing is probably as much or more important than any of the actual print advertising we're doing.
Have you had anyone directly say, like, "Hey, we saw you on the bus bench"? Because we know nobody said, well, except for that one guy who didn't buy a house, nobody said, "Hey, Lundy sent me." But has anyone said, "Hey, I saw you on the bus bench"?
We actually, last year, I got a phone call from a lady, and I always ask, how did you hear about me, or were you referred to me by anybody? And anyway, she says, I've got a friend in town. His sister just passed away, needs to sell the house. And I said, "Oh, great. How did you hear about me?" And she goes, "Well, I'm a city bus driver and I see your face about 10 times a day. So I thought we'd give you a call."
It works.
So
awesome.
it worked at least once.
And so one of the big things you guys have been doing with your group and Remax is a big community initiative. You've kind of looped in businesses and deals for your clients that you have existing clients with. How's the pickup on that been, and have the businesses seen some reciprocation on that?
So at the start of this year, we always look for additional ways to provide our clients with value, even the ones obviously who are our past clients. And with pandemic in play this year, and big concern for businesses staying open, all that kind of thing, I thought, why don't we do something that will help all of our existing clients who are business owners, as well as a bunch of great local businesses who aren't necessarily our clients, but who I know need our support. And so I was able to get in contact with a bunch of them, and they offered up promo deals for our client base, which hopefully drove some business in to those guys. And there's a lot of great local businesses that sometimes just need a little bit of extra exposure. And our platform isn't huge. Like, we're not hitting 30,000 people by any means, but every little bit helps, especially during a pandemic. And I think it was fairly well received. Like, our database isn't 20,000 people by any means, but if I can connect some of my clients who are great people with, my business owner clients and, other local businesses in the community where, again, they may not be my clients, but they're businesses that we all know, love, and support, I thought, why not, right? It's any bit helps in this environment. So.
Well, I think, that probably means a lot to each business, right? Especially now, like you said, every bit helps. But I think you've also seen a lot of pickup on that, like a lot of local businesses right away saying, "Yeah, I'll definitely, offer a discount or whatever it is to your clients too." So some great kind of back and forth there, right? I'm sure you've met or interacted or reconnected with some pretty amazing people in the community too.
It's I always try to support the people who support me. So, to be able to expose their businesses and help them out and hopefully drive a little business. And I'm personally, these are all businesses, like, I don't recommend anybody that I wouldn't personally use myself. These are all businesses that I use and support and are run by great local people. So,
do you find that people are looking at your online reviews, like those Google reviews or Yelp reviews or anything like that? I mean, we've seen a number of businesses lately that have just been getting pounded with negative online reviews that they don't deserve. Does that impact you at all, or is it mainly just referrals from reputable clients or word of mouth that really benefits you?
Our business is a little bit different because, you can go into a restaurant and spend 45 minutes there and decide that you didn't like the mashed potatoes that you ate and give them a bad review as a result, which obviously isn't generally fair. But people don't put too much weight on restaurants. They'll throw that stuff around. Obviously, our business is a little bit deeper in terms of the client experience and the depth of time that I spend with people. And obviously, selling your house is a little bit different than going to a restaurant. So
yeah, you're building that relationship with the client, and yeah, like you said, it's just much deeper than the 45-minute experience for sure.
So would you, because my answer to this is yes, but would you consider yourself a public figure? Just with, your face is out there, you're probably, on ads and that and out in the community a lot?
I wouldn't say I'm like a recognized public figure. I think lots of people probably know the name. For sure they know Remax, if nothing else. But yeah, I mean, we're out in the community, and that reputation is everything, because if people start saying bad things about you, or if you're getting bad reviews, then that's going to reflect poorly on your business. So yeah, I mean, reputation's important. A lot of businesses thrive on that.
And I had a lead. I led into this for a reason, because I think as a public figure, the time I've known you, I've known you as a very responsible, kind of straight-laced, easygoing guy. You don't really party too hard or do anything like that, act like idiots like the rest of us do. But I want to know, growing up with these three guys, were you like you are now, or were you a little more loose, or were you kind of like the guy that keeps everyone from going to jail, like you pretty much are now?
I'd actually be curious to hear what the other guy's answer on this is, but I would say, yeah, I was probably one of the more responsible guys. But I started in real estate really young. Like I was 19 when I got licensed. So, and a lot of us were still partying at that age. And so, I still went out to the bar, but I kept a pretty low profile, and definitely was conscious of, who sees you and what you're doing and all that. And I mean, I was never a crazy irresponsible partier. I've always kind of been the old man of the group anyway, but I definitely, like I said, I'd like to see what the other guy's impression of that is. I mean, we've all had our party time, obviously, but I would say as long as I've been working, I've been more responsible for sure.
That story checks out for me.
I've got 2 words. I want to see what you think about them. Tent wars.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I want to see what you think about them as your 2 words.
Can we tell that story,
So
please?
no, that doesn't count, because we were camping and we were way out of town.
Yeah, it's a different postal code, man.
Yeah, I just mean in general, even when you go camping, a lot of people are more even keel, and like I want to hear at least one story of Andrew Russell. And there's a statute of limitations on this, so you can't be held accountable.
I'd also like to point out that
younger.
Yeah, I didn't start the tent wars.
This is even pre Realtor, probably.
I think this was like, oh, you know what? Tent wars was literally the weekend before I started real estate.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I was respectful the whole weekend. I shook everyone's hand and then just was polite, said my thank yous, and then went to bed at like 9 p.m. that night.
Okay, well, I'm going to take it back to 7 p.m. And we were sitting by a fire, and then it got dark out, and you and another unnamed person decided, I'm going to put a Ryan-sized hole in Andrew's tent, and ran as fast as you could through his huge tent. You got any rebuttal?
Yeah, I didn't go through the tent. The tent held up. There was no hole. I mean, it did collapse the tent, but there was no hole. He could have used the tent for another 10 years.
Yeah, but to be clear, before you ran at the tent, you did say, I'm going to make a Ryan-sized hole in your tent.
I mean, Kev, a lot of things were said in the heat of the moment. Like, who knows who said what?
Okay, so let me just go back, because Andrew had a nice vehicle at that time, and I believe he was able to sleep in the back seat of the vehicle. And he went and after Lund broke his tent, I think he ran through it 3 or 4 times, and I think Bean was Andrew Russell's Bean for our viewers. He tried to tie up a rope to trip Lund because it was dark out, I think, at some point. And then he ended up going and breaking Lund's tent, all their poles. So Lund, instead of being smart and sleeping in his car, just slept inside the plastic right down on top of him while it was raining on him all night. So that was pretty hilarious.
So I honestly don't remember what started tent wars. Lund is known to get a little lippy when he's drunk. And in fact, he's probably the lippiest person I've ever met when he's drunk. I think if it wasn't for his sense of humor and his ability to make people laugh, he probably would have been beaten severely by
you're lippy in like a charming way.
Mary and Joseph.
Yeah, no, I could agree with that.
So I don't remember what started it, but basically,
I think I said, "Hey, man, like you have bad hair," and then you just lost it on me. You just went way overboard. I was trying to calm you down, and that didn't work. So I decided, I'll put a hole in his tent to cheer him up. And that didn't work.
I likely responded to Lund's whatever comment he made, and I do recall sitting around the fire. My tent was behind us, and he just looked at me and said, "I'm going to put a Ryan-sized hole in your tent." And I think I told him. I think I said, "Go ahead." And he got up from his chair.
He tried.
He got up from his chair and just like football dove into my tent. And it actually only snapped, I think, when the damage was all said and done, it did take the tent down, but I think it actually only snapped one of the poles. So I of course had been drinking at this time too.
Back then too. So
at the time I was hoping it was dark enough. I had a bright yellow piece of rope, and I'd strung it between two trees, thinking that he was going to be so drunk he wouldn't be able to see this rope.
And I'll just clothesline myself and take my head clear off.
I legit thought he was going to clothesline himself. Unfortunately, it was much too bright out that night. And he was drunk, but apparently not that drunk. And I recall us all laughing about me putting the rope up. And so Ryan got up, gently walked over, casually stepped over the rope, and then I think belly flopped onto my tent, which I think that was the time that it actually officially took it down. And so at that point, I think I had just sat and took a couple deep breaths and just went, whatever. And I waited probably, I want to say about another hour until it did get darker and they got a little bit drunker. And their tent was kind of away from the fire, and I think it was behind a couple cars. And I went over there and snapped every pole in their tent to the point where you could not recover that thing. And then I dragged it out onto the road and left it on the road. At which point, so we may have fist fought that night. I can't remember for sure.
Because you were so lippy.
Yeah, this piece of shit.
There may have been a fist fight that, like, I don't know if I've ever been in a fist fight other than with Lund, maybe.
You'd have to like punch straight down too. That is not an even fight.
Yes, I am very muscular, Ted, and tall. So
Yeah.
I only said tall. You added in
handsome
muscular,
as well.
yeah.
But
I'll give you handsome.
so anyway, I dragged their tent out onto the road, and so at some point, because I think you were sleeping with Cole, if I recall.
Yes, you got that bang on.
And anyway, so they had gone and dragged the tent off the road, and they put it back in the spot. But I had snapped every pole in the tent because, when I retaliate well. So did you sleep in the collapsed tent that night?
We tried for like 20 minutes and then realized it was a waste of time and we were way too cold. So we ended up sleeping in a van with like 6 other people that could only sleep like 2 people. It was a terrible, terrible night. So thank you for that. But no, this is bringing back some memory. We should go camping again.
Put a Ryan-sized hole in your trailer.
So that's probably a good note to kind of wrap up.
Well, I've got a pretty good Ryan Lund story.
Well, I think that was it.
If you want to hear that, I mean, it's up to you. It's the one that I always think of when I think of how I would describe my good friend Ryan. So
good luck, man.
It occurred at our good friend Ryan and Kelsey's wedding.
No.
I know exactly what story you're about to say.
Ryan had gotten a little bit intoxicated at this at our good friend's wedding. He was having a good night. And so our good friend is a firefighter, as it turns out. So, of course, a lot of firefighters know police officers. So there was a group of us standing outside of the reception venue, and we were chatting. And as it so happened, a police officer had pulled up who happened to know Ryan. And so we were outside having a nice conversation with the police officer. And our good intoxicated friend Ryan Lund walks out the door, not realizing who was standing with us, and says, "F the police." And jokingly, because we know Ryan loves the police. So only then to realize that we were standing there with a police officer. His jaw hit the floor. He promptly turned around, walked back into the building. We all had a good laugh, including the police officer, who thought it was quite funny. And about 3 minutes later, Ryan comes out the door, and I believe you said, "God bless the police."
Yeah. I remember that second part. The first part's a bit foggy. But yeah, no, I think we must have been chatting about the cops, or something must have happened in the news that day, because I would never disrespect our police force like that. I mean, those guys are putting their lives on the line every day of the week, and they are heroes. So
I think we were just outside talking about NWA.
That's not even, I think, the worst thing you've done at a wedding. Like, I've
we
never
don't have
seen.
to go. We don't have to go through the list.
No, but I've never seen anyone have a piece of wedding cake before the bride and groom before.
Allegedly,
Not allegedly. I watched the whole thing happen.
And had about 5 donuts from their donut bar for supper instead of having actual food.
Anyway, that's all we'll tell about that story.
So-
that is a good.
No, there is a second part to this
Oh.
story, Ted. So my wife at the time, who was about 8 months.
Do you have a
She's
different
still your
wife?
wife?
Yeah, no, sorry, yes, no, my
I
wife.
can say my wife. At
My
the
wife,
time,
who
yeah.
is currently still my wife, was 8
Currently.
months 8 months pregnant with our first, and so she was very pregnant. And so Lund wandered back into the reception hall and had proceeded to lay back down on an empty dining table. And my wife walked over to him, concerned for his welfare, and said, Lundy, I think, she goes, why don't you have some water? And he looked at her and he said, Kat, why don't you have a baby?
I thought we were just giving advice, just some friendly advice back and forth.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, I had some water. She had the baby. Everything worked out.
It did.
That
It's almost exactly 9 years ago to this day.
Wow. Well, I can't think of a more perfect note to end on there. That's thank you, Andrew, for sharing that story. Lund, thanks for being you and providing this content for us just throughout the years.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, Andrew, thanks for coming on and making up those stories about me. And yeah, I mean, I guess I'll be looking for a different realtor next time I sell my house. No, I'm kidding, buddy. I'll go back to you. So in all serious note, right, should I sell my house this winter or wait till next spring?
I'll be in all the pictures because I come with the house.
I was going to say there's a condition right there on the sale.
No,
Are you taking Ted with you? I can't leave this poor guy homeless.
Well, it's not like it's not the only place in the world to live. I just like it there.
Okay, but let's back up though. Is the winter an okay time? If I want to sell my house soon, should I sell it now or should I wait till springtime when the market heats up?
So there's two answers to that question. The wintertime will provide you with less competition in terms of other listed properties for sale, but there's also less buyers in the market. The spring market is generally the most active, but you'll also have more competition at the time. So more buyers, more competition. It's effectively all equivalent. I would tell you prices are more likely to go up in the spring than they would be in the wintertime. But there's no guarantee of that. So I would say sell whenever you need to sell.
All right, so Andrew, thank you again for coming. You were one of the first partners of Oh Dear, and you're a big one and continue to be. So thank you for your support. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for being patient too. I know, we wanted to have you in studio and then we had a couple other people on before, but I think the timing was perfect. So thanks for being here. And again, we will, hopefully someone tells you Lundy sent them because we still want to move someone into a new house.
I just want to say that, when I signed up to sponsor this podcast, I think I had put probably 10 different escape clauses where I would get my money back, which Ted agreed to all of. And, you guys have surpassed my expectations. You've turned this into
It's easy
something.
when there are none. Yeah.
You've turned this into a legitimate podcast. It's pretty enjoyable to listen to. So congratulations and cheers to you guys for not being a bunch of complete failures.
Wow, that's the nicest thing he's ever said to you, Lundy.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, we should actually go camping sometime soon. Maybe you've changed.
Oh dear.